about Summer and the team and anything draft related, and then we'll open for questions.
All right, great to see everybody. I'm going to try to do this in two parts, if you don't mind. I'm going to talk about the NBA draft and the process first, then we can open it up for questions on that. Then I'll talk a little bit about our team and what's happened since the end of the season, and open up for questions after that. Is that okay? We kind of split it up a little bit so we're not jumping all around. Once again, thanks for sitting in here. I really wanted to do this on Friday, the day after the draft, but I couldn't because we're in the middle of a lot of recruiting weekends here, and so I had to be gone. So today was the first day I could do it, and so I appreciate everybody being here. A year ago today, Jake and Alondis weren't listed in the top 100 list of college transfers, and they weren't on any NBA draft board or anybody's mock draft. And so it's a credit to them and the unbelievable year they had playing here that Jake became the 19th pick and the first round pick in the NBA draft by Minnesota. It was later obviously traded to Memphis, and Alondis signed a two-way contract with the Brooklyn Nets. As you guys know, the ACC, we had 6 players drafted in the first round, 7 overall. Half the ACC's first round picks were second league all players, all league players, but our league was down. Over the past 10 years, this is before we went into the draft on Thursday. Our league had 105 guys drafted in the last 10 years. I think the SEC's had 78, Big 12 57, and the Big 10 55. And so traditionally, our league is the best league in all of college basketball when it comes to draft. The process for our guys was it was long. We had a lot of guys, a lot of moving parts in it. As you guys know, Alondis and Nadeem didn't have any college eligibility remaining after the season. So those guys are automatically entered into the draft, and then they retain an agent, which they did. We had individual meetings in March after the Texas A&M game. Isaiah Musius, Davion Williamson, Dallas Walton, Jake Laravia all had college remaining eligibility. So we met and talked about that. And then all of them chose to test the water regarding the draft. So each player requested an undergraduate evaluation from the NBA. Now, this is something they got to fill out paperwork. I fill it out with them. And then you cannot send it in until the season is concluded. When the season is concluded, you send it in and you get it back within, they're pretty good about about 2 weeks. The evaluation is a committee of front office personnel in the NBA, and it provides percentages of where the committee believes you'll be drafted. It's broken into lottery, late first, early second, late second, and undrafted. After they receive that, each player then has to decide if they want to declare for the NBA draft by April 24th. And that's a totally different process than doing the undergraduate evaluation. Each one of those guys decided to declare for the draft with the option of retaining their college eligibility. The NCAA requires, not the NBA, the NCAA requires a player with remaining eligibility to hire an NCAA certified agent if they want to try to return to college. If they want to hire an agent, they don't have to. When a player hires an NCAA agent, they typically leave school and spend weeks with their agent and their trainer. This is a hard thing for college coaches because we lose day-to-day contact with our player or players in around April. The combine, as you guys know, is in mid-May. Alondis and Jake got invited. That's top 60, 70 players, but really had no workouts before that. Jake Laravia had 2 workouts before the combine, and Alondis didn't have any. The majority of the NBA workouts take place after the combine in May during June. June 1st is the NCAA deadline to withdraw from the NBA draft. That's an NCAA rule, not an NBA rule. The NBA deadline is June 13th, which would give them another couple weeks to get more information. Each decision was different. Dallas was invited for PIT or Portsmouth in April. He wanted to go, so that ended his college eligibility, so he retained an agent. He's hoping for a summer league invite, G League or overseas. Isaiah Musius worked out with his trainer in Orlando. He graduated from Wake in May. He later decided to remain in the NBA draft and retained an agent. and he's hoping for a summer league invite, G League or overseas. Davion Williamson hired an NCAA certified agent and declared for the draft. And then he graduated in May and then withdrew from the draft and returned to Wake. As you guys know, Jake retained an NCAA certified agent after he declared for the NBA draft. He had 2 NBA workouts before he went to the combine with New York and Brooklyn. He had 3 NBA workouts before June 1st with Milwaukee, Toronto, and Golden State. Coach Woodley and I flew to San Francisco on Memorial Day to meet with Jake after his Golden State workout. We flew to Indianapolis the following day, met with his parents. After all that, he chose to remain in the draft following our meetings. And that conversation will always remain private. And that was all based on the information we had accumulated at that time. In the end, Jake had 14 workouts. He went to actually 16, because he went to Golden State twice, Milwaukee twice. Linus had 14. Musius had 5, Walton 3. So we had a Wake Forest player worked out for 23 different NBA teams in the NBA cycle this year. I had a chart that I kept, very detailed, of every draft pick, who I spoke to, what day our guys were working out for what team. And it helped me because there was a lot going on. The culmination of this was too much of hard work by these players, hours and hours of daily phone calls. The draft was nerve-wracking. I had 2 very long conversations with Minnesota 48 hours before the draft about Jake. We had great information from Memphis because Matt Woodley's on our staff. He spent 3 years in the Grizzlies organization. I got some text messages from Minnesota about 5 minutes before the draft and trade. Alondas had a guarantee with Brooklyn before the draft, which just happens a lot in the second round. His agent and I spoke about that on the day of the draft. Once it got past mid-30s, second round, they went with the guarantee, which I thought was great. And, I've had a couple players do that recently. Fred VanVleet, Ron Baker, decided to no-go the second round and signed a free agent 2-way and did well. So a lot happened with these guys. Obviously there's recruiting going on, there's coaching going on, there's all kinds of things. We had to manage a lot of things, but I thought it went really well. I'm really happy for all these guys, and especially Jake, to go from where he went from today to where to be the 19th pick in the NBA draft is a credit to him. So I will open it up to questions if anybody has any on that process.
I guess this might be kind of obvious here, but with where those guys were a year ago, you mentioned not even being on anybody's radar and going to 19th overall and being ACC Player of the Year and signing a deal with Brooklyn. How much does that help you in the recruiting cycle going forward to show the transfers that, hey, look at what these 2 guys did, that you can be next?
It definitely doesn't hurt. That's something we'll be promoting, until it's over. That it's something that, kids are looking at, right? And a lot of coaches approached me about that in the, over the past couple of weeks we've been out recruiting about what a great message that'll be. And it is, but there's still playing time opportunity and there's still NIL involved. And so it's not the only thing, but it does help. You can see on my wall behind me, there's a lot of NBA guys up there that in the past that I've coached and recruited, and those 2 guys will join that wall back over here in the viewer. You can see them at some point. Just haven't had time to do it, but yeah, I think it doesn't. I think it will help. I don't know. It won't be the deciding factor, but it's definitely something that will help in the narrative for sure.
Steve, what do you think helped Jake the most with his year at Wake Forest? What do you think he improved on maybe the most over his time?
Yeah, John, I think one of the things is for the first time and really in his career, he played on the perimeter a lot. And that showed the NBA that he could definitely play the 3, that he could guard guards, that he could switch, 1 through 4. He could stretch the court, shot a high percentage. I mean, a ridiculous 2-point field goal percentage, I think, of over 60%. we went from 299th in 2-point field goal percentage my first year to third in the country. And he had a lot, him and Alondas had a lot to do with that. I think showing that he could shoot the three and make the three, but didn't really probably take enough. And I think that was probably the only, if there was any negative feedback that was coming back, was just he hadn't made a lot of threes in a season yet. And he turned down some to get closer, which because he was a good driver. But I think just being on the court, we played Alondas and we played Jake a lot of minutes. Okay. Rightfully so. In the NBA, same way. And he was very productive and very competitive. Great passer, high level defender, all the things they're looking for. And you know, the game's changing. They maybe that league's going a little smaller. He can play a lot of different places on the court. And so I think showing that here at this level in the ACC, not the Missouri Valley, really helped them, you know, make a decision on where he went to. Very few people are going to do that. I think it's hard to go from where he was at to where he landed. And again, all that credit goes to him and all the hard work that he put in.
Coach, you just kind of touched on it, but how much do you think both of those guys coming to the ACC and playing against those guys, you touched on the guys that went in the first round, you know, from the ACC, but how much do you think that helped them in the process?
I think it helps, you know. Now Alondas played in the Big 12, but, you know, it's not a bad league by no means, one of the better leagues in the country. But it wasn't as productive, and it was a much more productive player here in the ACC. You know, Jake going from the Valley to the, you know, to the ACC was a big jump, and he handled it flawlessly. He has incredible belief in himself, as does Alondas. And so I don't think they were never intimidated, you know, by that jump. And so, you know, they believe in themselves. And so I think it does help, but also you know, at the end of the day, you can do all these workouts, you can go to the combine, do the drills, but your tape is your tape. Right. And these guys study tape. They go to the games live. They see it all. Majority, and I had hours and hours of phone calls from April till the night of the draft about them and everybody on our team. And very rarely do they ask, you know, hey, what do you think of him as a player? But it's just so much more detailed than that. It comes down to character, work ethic, coachability, do they get along with their teammates, on and on and on and on and on. And so it's a detailed process. They're not going to just hand a guy $1 million or more and say, here, take it. And I don't blame them. It's a job. It's a business. And these guys did a really good job with that.
Hey, Steve, how difficult is it from a roster management perspective to have that deadline be so late in the process, you know, June 1st? And then how close do you think it was to Jake deciding to return to Wake Forest?
Well, first of all, you know, it's interesting. I have a different perspective on the deadline now going through it. I would have no problem with him going to June 13th because he'd have had more information. He'd had more workouts. You can only do so many workouts in a short amount of time. So June 1st is pretty rushed for a guy that just goes to combine and then comes and gets about 3 workouts, and that's about it. I mean, the pool of players on June 1st is going to be the pool of players that are still available June 13th. And so, you know, if you'd asked me that last year, I'd probably told you, you know, June 1st was late, but now going through it with this group, I'm not so sure I wouldn't just say June 13th. It'd be fine. Yeah, it's hard to recruit because, as you know, everybody's going to use that against you. I felt very lucky and very blessed to get Andrew Carr during this process with Jake still on the roster. And, you know, it's hard. Yeah, and we're not the only ones that go through it. I mean, there's a lot of teams that go through it every year. We're not going to oversign though. And, you know, I wasn't sure all the way up until those meetings. And, you know, I'm not going to get into the details of that, but what I do know is this is what I told Jake. When you have a real relationship, you tell the truth. And sometimes the truth it's not what you always want to hear. That doesn't mean I didn't tell him what he wanted to hear, but I gave him both sides of the spectrum. Sometimes an agent, and many times an agent does not do that. Okay. But he knew how much Coach Willie and I respected him and loved him. So he listened to both sides of it, because the intel at that point was it was all over the map. From the night of the draft, my chart said from 19, where he went, to 35. That's where I saw it late, like worst case scenario, he wouldn't go probably past 35. Best case was 19, and that's where he went, because he worked out for every team from 19 to 30. All right, except Houston, who traded in there late. All right, and so we had a good feel, but at that point, it's unclear. But at the end of the day, this is what you got to do in life. You got to bet on yourself. And he bet on himself. And I told him, either way, we love you, we support you. You have to make the decision. You just need all the information. And I tell our players all the time, our coaches all the time, in recruiting, I make better decisions when I have more information. And so it's just about information. And information is hard in this process, because they want it all from us, very unwilling to give it back to us. Now, having 34 years in this business, I have a lot of great relationships in the NBA with a lot of coaches that started with me and moved on. And so I was getting good feedback, I felt, but not the total truth. There was going to be a risk. There was going to be a gamble either way. Okay. Unless you're just Paolo Banchero. But hey, Paolo Banchero, everybody's saying he was going third, right? What happened? One. You don't know. And some guys that were on all your mock drafts you guys look at, they slipped from the first to the second round. And I didn't want that for him. I love him too much, and I care about him too much. And so it was just constant. I was a mess. I mean, the last couple months have been hard for me because of that and recruiting and everything else that goes on with the job. It's been a lot, but it's a good problem, but it's nerve wracking. And it's like a roller coaster every day. You're trying to put, pieces of information together. So at the end of the day, he made the right decision, and good for him.
Coach, there was that video that came out from the team on all the social media of you guys all watching the draft together that night, and the reaction when Jake got taken at 19. How much do you think that's a testament to the closeness of the team from this past season? And then there are also the new guys there, like Zach Keller was in that video, just how much bonding there's going on with this team and rallying behind guys who are even gone so quickly, into your tenure here at Wake.
You saw how excited they were to be together last summer when I made you run up and down for managers weren't clapping enough in practice. So
I remember that.
Remember that? That was
Yes,
about
sir.
a year ago right now.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it's all about, is just, that togetherness. And we wanted to be together to watch it. Jake had invited us to Indianapolis, and so had Alondis, and I couldn't be in two places at one time, and I had camp and I had our players here, and I felt like it was really important to be here with them. And so it was an exciting moment, a genuine moment when it happened. Now I knew it was coming. I actually I had it before Woj had it, which is hard to do, but it's just a testament to how much they really cared about each other. And I'll tell you this, one of the impressive things about those two guys that I told the NBA over and over and over about was how great of a teammate those two were, how well liked they were. Sometimes the best players aren't well liked. Okay. And they were unbelievable teammates. Alondis was best friends with all the scholarship players and the walk-ons, the same as Jake. I'll give you an example of Alondis. When the springtime, when Jake was already gone and some of the seniors were kind of doing their own thing, we're working them out separate. All the young guys were in here at 3:00 working out. He was in there supporting them, not working out, just sitting there cheering them on. That tells you, to me, what kind of person and teammate that he is and was here. And so I'm not surprised how excited, our players were when his name was called, when Jake's name was called, and then when I told him what was going on with Alondis.
Do we have anything else draft related to ask Coach?
All right.
Okay, let's
I
get
guess-
into this year's team.
Got 6 returning players, that understand our core values, identity, standards. Obviously, Davion Williamson tops the list, is 1,000, scored over 1,000 plus points in his career. Damari Monsanto, who today is down 16 pounds from his Achilles tear. Cameron Hildreth, Matthew Marsh, Robert McCray. Robert has looked really good early, but missed 2 weeks of practice with ankle sprain. Hopefully will be back today. Lucas Taylor's in tremendous shape. And that's kind of what we're at right now. We're trying to get in elite condition. And I would say he's probably at the top of that as far as a guy that can really get through the conditioning. In the recruiting, in the transfer portal, we signed one grad transfer, Tyree Appleby, who I think has scored 13, 14, 1,500 points in his career already. Again, but he's missed 2 weeks of practice with groin. He should be back today as well. And then we signed some younger players with experience. Jao Atuka from Marist was the freshman of the year in that league. He's just going to be a sophomore eligibility-wise. Andrew Carr from Delaware played on the NCAA tournament team. Again, sophomore eligibility-wise. He measured 6'10" and a half in his shoes, which I don't know if you guys – we play in our shoes, so I don't measure guys in their bare feet. Doesn't make much sense to me. Davion Bradford is a sophomore, measured at 6'11". And then we had a couple of high school players at Keller who came in here at 6'10", 235, and has really played well and is really shooting the three well. Bobby Klintman, who's not with us right now, 6'9". He's in Sweden playing with the under-20 team. This month he's going to be working out with the national team as well. They're basically their Olympic team. And then in July, he goes to the under-20s in Georgia. Unless that's Tbilisi, Georgia, not Atlanta, Georgia. Okay, there's 2 Georgias out there. I don't know if you knew that or not. And Tbilisi's where I think that's the birthplace of Stalin. So give you a little history lesson there. The transfer portal, there was 1,700 plus players in it when we were done. 1,450 of those guys were scholarship players. We had 1 scholarship player in the transfer portal, well below the national average of 4. But the transfer portal was a lot different this year. There were fewer graduate transfers than a year ago based on the COVID eligibility year a year ago. Those seniors got an extra year. That was Alondis, Dallas, and Nadine. I really believe the number of graduate transfers will continue to dwindle or go down due to immediate eligibility and due to the end of COVID eligibility. And what I mean by that is a lot of time guys who are grad transfer guys who redshirted, okay, but with immediate transfers and can be eligible immediately, I think that number is going to go down as we keep going. We'll see. That's my opinion. Once COVID eligibility runs out, then the one-time transfer with the one-time transfer, and we all know there's several people in there transferred 2 or 3 times that I see that going down. At Wake, we can't recruit third-year transfers. Guys are going to be a junior or senior year because we don't accept enough transfer credits for the transfers to be eligible and then graduate. So when we go in there, it's freshman, sophomore, and graduate transfers, which I believe is going to dwindle. A lot of players who entered the portal this year, I felt like they knew where they were going before they entered the portal. We had NIL agents negotiating NIL deals for players in the portal before and after they entered. It's very concerning to me that a college player is required to hire an NCAA certified agent to enter the draft. If they want to retain their eligibility and test the water, they got to hire an NCAA certified agent. So they're not able to use a lot of the best agents in this business aren't NCAA certified, which I think is a very important decision because they need information. They need their agent to have leverage. But yet, a college player does not have to hire an NCAA certified NIL agent, which makes 0 sense to me. So I'll use you for an example. CAA, which is a very powerful agency, they don't have an NCAA certified agent for basketball, but they're signing freshmen and sophomores in college to NIL deals. You don't think they're going to be their agent? I mean, what planet are we living on here? And those guys are taking 20% of those NIL deals probably. And so this thing's backwards to me. To me, they should be able to get the best representation that they can get when it comes to the NBA, and they're not getting it. Last year's players in the portal could not visit, and we could not go see them. This year, the players could visit. We could go see them. So that kind of drug the process out a little bit longer. At the ACC meetings in June, my beliefs were reaffirmed of what took place in the season, late in the season, regarding our NCAA tournament chances. We were told in the meeting that if Virginia Tech had lost to Duke in the finals of the ACC tournament, Virginia Tech would have likely replaced Notre Dame in the tournament, who finished second in the ACC at 15-5. That didn't go over very well. Okay. Notre Dame was the last team in the tourney. It's very troubling. It's not about quantity of wins. It's about quality of wins, obviously, quad ones especially. You go back and look at our deal, a lot of people freaked out when we lost to Clemson. I don't like losing to anybody, but it didn't have anything to do with us not getting in the tournament. The road loss at Duke, to be honest with you, hurt more than anything because that was a quad one win. The loss to BC in the ACC tournament prevented us from playing Miami. But sadly, a win over Miami would not have gotten us in the tournament. We would have had to beat Duke. Okay, which means if we had beaten BC and Miami and lost to Duke in the ACC semifinals, we'd have had a 15 ACC win season and been left out of the tournament. I firmly believe that. And I have the inside information to prove it. At the conclusion of the NCAA tournament, we had a better net ranking. Now, you got to understand, they do the net on the day of the selection Sunday, but then they redo the net after the tournament. So we had a better net ranking than 9 of the at-large bids in the tournament. We went from 196 my first year to 42. We had a better KenPom ranking than 14 of the at-large bids in the tournament. We went from 175 to 35. But on selection Sunday, we didn't get a quad one win for wins over Carolina and at Virginia or home against Notre Dame. After the conclusion of the tournament, we had 3 quad one wins. Okay, the ACC did not provide us with the quad one wins we normally would have received. We said that before. But the ACC also finished 14-5 in the NCAA tournament. 2 teams in the Final Four and 3 in the Elite 8. Our schedule's about done. We've worked, as you can tell, I put a lot of thought. It's been on my mind on top of all these other things. We do have a home and home with Georgia, start here. I inherited the Jamaica MTE, which I did try to get out of for a couple of years and could not. So we'll go there and play LaSalle, and then the winner loser of Georgetown and I believe Loyola Marymount. We're at Wisconsin in the Big Ten Challenge. We got a home game, a neutral game in Atlanta against LSU, and a home and home starting on the road with Rutgers. And on top of that, we should have, with our schedule in the ACC, I think we'll have 8 probably quad one opportunities even in the league play this year. So we'll have plenty of opportunities to play, for an at-large bid. The Xavier game got pushed. We want to play the game, but it's not our home game. So we got to agree on the date. My first year, COVID stopped it. There was a coaching change. Last year, their coach wanted to push it. This year, another coaching change there and could not agree on a date. I want it to happen. I'm not trying not for it to happen, but we have to, it's got to be mutual. We're taking an overseas trip, August 1st to August 10th. That means we get 10 extra practices and to do that trip. My players were probably really excited about that. The majority of those will be in July. 3 games we'll play. I've done this many times. I let the one assistant coach, I have 3 assistant coaches, coach one of the assistant coaches will coach 1 game as a head coach. Then it'll be Woodley, Savage, and Mackey will coach one of the games. I'll obviously be there. But it gives them a chance to be the head coach. It gives the players don't have to listen to me in August. They hear me enough. We're going to London, Paris, back to Omaha Beach, and then to Amsterdam. It's an unbelievable educational experience. This is why we do it. Great chemistry, team bonding, lifetime experience. Typically, I've always taken a history instructor with us, and they've gotten credit for learning the culture and the history of where we're going. We just didn't have time this year because originally, guys, I like to go places that we typically wouldn't go. Like a lot of teams go to Bahamas or Canada. I'm not doing that. I had originally planned to go to Helsinki and then take a 2-day ferry or a ferry for a 2-day visa into St. Petersburg, the home of the Tsars, back through Tallinn in Estonia and into Lithuania, finishing in Vilnius and Kaunas where AK played. But I didn't plan this with Vladimir Putin. Obviously, he had a little different plan in March than I did. And so I had to change where we were going. And so we're excited. It gives Matthew Marsh, Cameron Hildreth a chance to play in front of friends and family. And it's just, it's a potential home for several of our players who, if they want to play professionally later, they can go play. I know I've covered a lot of subjects here. More than glad to answer questions.
Steve, with one starter coming back in this era, are you a little more comfortable with the transfers you're bringing in? Because in past years, you lose a starter and boom, everyone's saying, oh, they're going to struggle. But with the way you're able to get these recruits, it's got to be a different feel for you.
Yeah, it's, those guys that we signed have all started, right? And I'm pretty sure that Andrew played. I know he started in the NCAA tournament last year and scored 14 points against Villanova. I'm pretty sure Tyree probably played in the NCAA tournament at his point in Florida. I'm not 1,000% on that, but those guys have all been starters, so that helps. Yeah, it'd be nice. It would have been nice, if one of those guys with extra year came back and maybe a Musius or Walton, but that was their decision. And again, I think you saw it was a very detailed, thought out process that we went through. It wasn't something that just happened after one meeting. It was hundreds and hundreds of talks and phone calls. So yeah, it's nice to have some experience like that. But again, we're starting from scratch a little bit, which doesn't bother me. But we'll see where we're at. Between now and in November.
Steve, what is the biggest thing you've learned so far about the group you have on campus now? How will this team be different than last year, for instance, do you think?
Les, I don't know. I mean, we really haven't done enough for me to really understand that yet. It's a process. We're smaller in the guard court, but we're probably faster and quicker. We've done a lot of individual breakdown. We've done a lot of conditioning. The more the team stuff's going to start today. I've had a busy schedule too, and so it's been a little bit harder for me to maybe get my arms around exactly where we're at, but I wouldn't expect to right now anyway. I do think our biggest can stretch the court. I've been very pleased with the way Andrew Carr and Zach Keller are shooting the basketball facing up. I like the fact that Keller came in here as a high school player at 230 pounds or 235. That's impressive. He's a hard playing dude. Davion's Davion. Robert was playing really well till he got hurt, but I'm sure he'll bounce back. I'm not sure. I mean, we'll figure it out, and that's why we got the practices here in July, and we got the trip to Europe will help us to kind of get our arms around that. Maybe we'll press a little bit. I don't know. We're going to figure that out here real short. I don't mean to dance around your question, but we've had some guys out, and it's only been three. I think this is going on week 4 here. It's only been 3 weeks. Really haven't done enough team wise yet to kind of know where that's at, but we will adjust. I can promise you that.
Steve, what was the process in moving Jason to the assistant to the head coach role and Matt to the assistant coach role?
I mean, there really wasn't. I mean, it's just, it gives Matt the opportunity to recruit. Jason's son, Joel, is a really good player. High school player, will be a junior at Mount Tabor. It gives him a chance to probably watch him more. And really, to be honest with you, it doesn't really affect the coaching because the rules have changed to where we can have, if one of the assistants is gone or I'm gone, then I designate 2 guys that can coach, and that is now Jason and Antanas Kavalauskas. So it doesn't change the dynamic of our team at all. Really, it gives Woodley the chance to go out and recruit, and he's shown that he's good at that. And so it doesn't mean that next year or the year after we won't do it again or do somebody different. I like to keep things fresh. And so I think I see that happening. And I also think that we're going to see some rule changes here pretty soon. There's some legislation out there, and I'm not quite, with this, I don't even know what it is, oversight committee or this look at college basketball, whoever these people are. There's a lot of talk about everybody being able to coach and everybody being able to recruit. And to be honest with you, I don't see why they can't. I mean, I don't know how they think we're going to develop young coaches if they can't coach. Doesn't make any sense to me, and so who cares who's coaching? Do they care how many lab assistants there are in the biology department? No. And so I don't really understand that. I think it's what should be what's best for our players. And so I think that might change, Connor, in the coming months, maybe a year. And so I don't know how it'll really be that much of a difference here pretty soon anyway.
Steve,
Like
you
you said,
mentioned
you're
your
only-
schedule. Go ahead.
I know you said you're only 2 to 3 weeks in. Is it too early for you to have the player rankings that you talked about
No.
last year?
Yeah, I can rank them on conditioning. But as far as playing, no. But I can tell you that Davion Bradford's lost 19 pounds since he got here already. I mean, he's working his tail off. We've really, going through this process with the NBA, it's come very apparent to me that it's really about being in elite condition and being light on your feet and being strong, but being light on your feet. And, so we've really starting to monitor their body fat and their weight and their conditioning. And so they're working really hard at that. I mean, like I said, it looks like here, Damari's lost, like I said, 16, Giles lost 14, Davion 19. We got some guys that need to put it on. Andrew's up, he's only about 5 pounds from his goal target weight by the end of the summer. So as far as ranking them, I won't do that starting till now, probably this week when we start going. And I'm here all the time to be able to, to do that. But our recruiting calendar is so crazy. We've already had 2 weekends in June where we've been out. I've got the NBA camp this week. I'm not sure if I'm going to go. That's Wednesday, Thursday. And then we go back, and then we have 2 periods in July where we're out Wednesday to Sunday. So it's not very conducive for us to, with our summer, with practice. And so I have to work around that. And but I should know more about that towards the end of the summer.
Steve, you mentioned your schedule earlier. Are you guys going to have an exhibition with Winston-Salem State like you did last year?
I don't know. John, I mean, I'm sure something we'll discuss. That is the very last game that we schedule as the exhibition game. And that worked out great. I'm not against it. I mean, we had a great crowd, and I thought it was wonderful. So I'm sure we'll go back and revisit that once we get the schedule finished. We got one more game, a bye game to get, and I think we're going to be done. So we'll get to that here probably this month, to be honest with you.
Coach, how much was last year's out of conference a learning experience in terms of scheduling this year? And then are you kind of pleased with how that's come out, just being a little bit more aggressive with some of the games that you guys have scheduled for this year out of conference?
Well, I like to have been more aggressive with all those guys coming back. And then I wouldn't really be too worried about it. But, last year was what we had to do, and I've said that 100 times. I mean, at this point last year, we had 9 new players, and I had no idea where we were at. And the schedule's done in April, May, June. So how do you know? I really didn't learn anything because I've done it for so many years. I knew what I was doing, and what I was trying to do was win games and get momentum. And that's the other thing about our non-conference schedule. Yeah, we didn't play tough, and we didn't lose either. We went 10-1, and so I thought it was perfect. This year, I knew we had to play a little bit tougher schedule. We could even play a tougher one. I mean, there's other games you can play. You try to gauge it to your team. Now, that was the hard part because all the way up till June 1, I didn't know if Jake was coming back. So I'm trying to schedule games thinking, I don't know if he's back. It's a different team with him back. and we're a younger team now. But we're playing teams that we are competitive with, and I'm not worried about it, but it is on paper, it is harder. And so that's okay. And so we know where we're at, and hopefully, the other thing you gotta remember now, we played Duke and Carolina twice, and our ACC schedule is not easy, never gonna be. And so you have to count on those games too. You have to be careful. You can't bury your team either. That's not very smart in the non-conference. And so there's a fine line with it. And, but it was a little dicey for us because I wasn't sure where Jake was at. And so we had to schedule some games because you got to take them when you can get them. And so we are where we are, and, we're excited about it. And so next year's schedule will probably be different. Who knows? It depends on who we have coming back and what kind of year we had. Now we do have Rutgers back at home, and we have Georgia on the road, which I like that balance of a home and away with 2 high majors. We're always going to probably play a neutral because a quad 1 win on a neutral game is 1 through 50. It's almost impossible to get a quad 1 home game in the non-conference. Okay. Think about it. It's just 1 through 30. It's tough. And so to get quad 1 looks in the non-conference, you almost got to go play neutral or play on the road. And so, I think, we're working towards that.
Steve, how would you best describe the 2-month process, basically, the junior staff went through to build the roster as it is now? And then to kind of follow up on that, what are the plans for the potential 13th scholarship?
Yeah, it was, yeah. Well, it was tedious and a lot of hard work, a lot of phone calls. I'm not one of those guys that just goes in there and offers everybody unbeknownst to what everybody thinks. There's a lot of phone calls that have to be made, a lot of background. And this year we could go see them. They could come to us. So it just made it, a lot longer. But for us, it comes down to, a lot of different things. And they got to check a lot of boxes before we can even get them on campus. And so credit to our staff. I mean, I know, a year ago it was, it started popping in there, but those kids couldn't visit. That was all Zoom. And so the process was going to take longer. And I think there was more people involved in the portal this year. And to be quite frankly, I don't think the portal was as good as it was a year ago. Just to be quite frank with you, from top to bottom, I don't think the talent was there. There's numbers, but again, supply far outweighs demand, I believe. And so, there was a lot that went into that. And then it drug into, May and maybe a little bit of June. I don't remember. There's so much going on, because we were juggling our own players, and our own players had a lot going on. And so, it was a lot of hard work, but it was worth it. And I think we did really well. They got to go out there and prove it. And that's the one thing about recruiting. I've always said, you got, people want to rank recruiting classes. You probably should rank them after they leave, not before they get here. And so we'll see. The last scholarship, we'll use it if we find somebody we think is good enough. Simple. I think I've said that before, and that hadn't changed. And so, we're doing it. We're recruiting every day. You got to remember, recruiting 25, 24, 23, 24, 25 right now, and then even 22. We're looking. We're looking here, we're looking overseas, and if we can find somebody that we think fits, we'll do it. If not, I'm not going to just take somebody. That's wasteful. It's not very smart. We need to have ACC level players. And if we can find one, we will. And beauty's in the eye of the beholder. What I think might work for me might not be what somebody else thinks. That's just what it's going to be. And so, we got our tentacles out there right now. We're looking, and we'll continue to do that until it's too late to get somebody in.
Steve, every player being different and an individual, how does going through that NBA process help or hurt Davion, and how? Coming back.
Oh, I think it helps him. I think he gets an idea of, he didn't get any workouts, but he got with an NCAA certified agent. He did some workouts, different than probably what we do. Davion's a really hard worker. He likes to work out. So I think that probably helped him. he's witnessing and talking to what his teammates are going through. There's a lot of intel that I got that I'm going to share with the team at some point about things that were done right and things that were done wrong. Right. And so I think it helps all of them with that respect. Okay. With Davion, I think it was just a good experience, but Davion stayed here. He didn't leave. He worked out here every day, did something different than what the guys in the spring were doing, but he had to graduate too. He had a lot on him. And I think we tend to forget that a little bit when the season's over. These guys this is the longest season in college for athletes, right? It's really all year round. And so once the season's over, him and Zay had to graduate. They had a lot of academic stuff that they had to deal with. And so he was juggling both of those. But I think it's going to help him, and I think it's going to help our entire team at some point when I sit down and share with them the inside information that I received, the feedback that I received about all of our guys. And again, all of our guys, we worked out for 23 different NBA teams, okay, of all 4 of those guys. And there's only, 30? So we were very well represented. And listen, a lot of positive feedback, okay? And I think that helps too, because the way we play and the way we teach it, it translates. And that is powerful. That might be the most powerful thing, is the fact that these guys are really good players, but they played the right way. They played in the system that the NBA appreciates, respects, and that caught their attention. They watched a lot of tape of our games. And so I think that really is powerful. I also think they have to understand that, and this helps them going through it, is they don't just call me. They call Jane Caldwell. They call Mike Starkey. They call John Curry, Lucy. They call them all. So, it's more encompassing than just scoring 20 points a game. And so I think that whole thing is, you try to tell them that until they go through it, then it's like, oh, okay. I've told them. But now that these guys have gone through it, and Davion, I think it helps. And I think it helps their mindset when they come here. It helps in recruiting, because I tell recruiters over and over and over, you got to have a plan when you get here, right? You can't just come here with no plan. You got to have a plan where you want to get. And we'll have it. We'll help you to make it, but you got to execute it. And so I think those things all help.
Steve, what's the balancing act when you have last summer it was Matthew, and this summer with Bobby, with the guy that wants to play for his country, but he's going to come in and be a little behind everybody else?
Yeah, it's just part of it, Connor. I mean, that going into the recruiting process. I mean, that was up front. So if you don't like it, you move on, right? I've never let that bother me, because number one, I think it's really important to represent your country. I think that's a once in a lifetime thing. I never got to do it. I mean, I can't imagine the pride that you would have doing that. And I've had a lot of players that have done it. So I'm never going to get in the way of that. And it's not like they're not practicing, it's not like they're not playing against good competition, because they are, Matthews was different. It was just late, and it was the admissions process, for Bobby. It wasn't that, it was just that he had already committed to playing on this under 20 team, and he gets to work out with the national team as well, or their Olympic team. And so I think it's good for him. Yeah. Does it, selfishly, would I like to have him here? Yeah, sure I would, but it's not the end of the world. And he'll be here and when school starts, and hopefully be ready to go. He should be. He's going to play all summer, and we'll see him when we get back.
I'm assuming he's the only one that won't be able to join you on the early August trip.
Yeah. He can't, there's just a lot of red tape on that for him to be able to do that. And so he'll just come here in August and be ready to go. And so everybody else is good to go. And we're even going to take 3 walk-ons, Grant Van Beveren, RJ Kenna, and Kevin Dunn. They'll go too, because those guys are really hard workers and a big part of our team.
Is there a plan in place to add more walk-ons? Just you guys losing, JR and Miles?
How many do you want me to have, Essex?
I don't know. I liked the walk-ons quite a fair bit. So
They're really important. I like to have 5 because they can run when it gets down to the season, they run the scout team. I've come to find out through my experience that scholarship players are not very good scout team players. They don't listen to what the other team is running. And so, yeah, we have, I think we have 2 new ones, maybe 3, no more than that. If you ask me right now what their names are, I would be lying. So I can't give them to you. Doesn't mean they're not important, but I got a lot of things floating around here in my head right now. That's not one of them, but they're important. And as you've seen in practice. And so we'll definitely miss Miles and JR. They did a great job. Great job.
Anything else for Coach?
All right. Just remember, there's 2 Georgias today. We've learned one thing today. There's Georgia in the United States, and then there's Georgia over there in Europe. Okay. And so it's always a teaching moment here on the Steve Forbes press conference. All right. We go with that.
All right. Thanks,
All right.
Coach.
See you.
Thanks, Steve.
All right.